Welcome to our ReadAloud. This I have in front of me is a presidential document by the Executive Office of the President proclaiming that this is National Native American Heritage Month for 2010. It even has Obama's signature on it. And in honor of that, you can have that. Thank you so much. We've invited Candi Krisch, the Intercultural Specialist and Liaison to the American Indian and Indigenous students in the Multicultural Center. And she's going to read to us excerpts from Growing Up Native American and Killing the White Man's Indian. So we have two selections. She wanted to bring a student, but that didn't work out, so we'll enjoy her. She was here last year and did a wonderful job, so I'm sure it's going to be just as entertaining and insightful as our presentation was last year. You want to take over?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And actually, because I had picked Killing the White Man's Indian because it had a more masculine bent, because the student I was bringing is masculine. Fortunately, his wife just had a baby, so he is, it's unfortunate for us, but fortunate for them. So I actually chose a couple of poetry readings instead that I am very fond of that are also written by Indigenous women. So I hope that you will enjoy them. I am going to read from Growing Up Native American. It's 22 American writers recalling their childhood, and the one that I picked for today is titled Water Witch by Lewis Owens, and he is Choctaw, Cherokee, and Irish. So his little introduction to this short story is, according to Choctaw and Cherokee traditions, rivers are sacred, living beings with destinies of their own. In this personal essay, Lewis Owens remembers his father, a man who knew rivers and their secret hiding places deep within the earth. Owens shares his childhood memories of California's Salinas River, whose presence captured his imagination. For a while, when I was very young, my father was a water witch. He took us with him sometimes, my older brother and me, and we walked those burned-up Central California ranches wherever there was a low spot that a cropping cattle desperate rancher could associate with a dream of wetness. The dusty windmills with their tin blades like pale flowers would be turning tiredly or just creaking windward now and then. And the ranch dogs, always long-haired, brown and black, with friendly eyes, would sweep their tails around from a respectful distance. The ranches, scattered near places like Preston, Pozo, San Miguel, and San Ardo, stretched across burnt gold hills, the little ranch houses bent into themselves beneath a few dried up cottonwoods or sycamores, some white oaks if the rancher's grandfather had settled early enough to choose his spot. Usually there would be kids, 3 or 4, ranging from diapers to hot rod pickups, and the friendly ranch dogs, they'd keep their distance. The cattle would hang close to the fences, eyeing the house and gray barn. In the sky, red-tailed hawks wheeled against the washed-out sun, while ground squirrels whistled warnings from the grain stubble. He'd walk, steps measured as if the earth demanded measure. The willow fork held in both hands before him pointed at the ground like some kind of offering. We'd follow a few yards behind with measured paces, and nearly always the one would finally tremble, dip, and dance toward the dead wild oats, and he would stop to drive a stick into the ground, or pile a few rock dry clods in the cairn. A displaced Mississippi Choctaw half-breed, squat and reddish, blind in one eye, he'd spit tobacco juice at the stick or cairn and turn back towards the house. Feeling maybe the stirring of Yazoo mud from the river of his birth, as if the water he had never discovered, but drew all that way from a darker, damper world. Within a few days, he'd be back with his boss, and they'd drill a well at the spot that he'd marked. Not once did the water fail, but always it was hidden and secret, for that was the way of water in our part of California. When I think now of growing up in that country, the southern end of the Salinas Valley, a single mountain range from the ocean, I remember first the great hidden water, the Salinas River, which ran out of the San Luis and disappeared where the coastal mountains bent inland near San Luis Obispo. Dammed at its headwaters into a large reservoir where we caught bluegill and catfish, the river never had a chance. Past the Spillway Gorge, it sank into itself and became the largest subterranean river on the continent. A half-mile wide swath of brush and sand and cottonwoods, with a current you could feel down there beneath your feet when you hunted down the river bottom. As if a water witch yourself, you swayed at every step towards the stream below. We lived first in withdrawn canyons in the Santa Lucias, miles up dirt roads into the creases of the Coast Range, where we kids squirmed through buckbrush and plotted long hunts to the ocean. But there were no trails, and the manzanita would turn us back with what we thought must be the scent of the sea in our nostrils. Rattlesnakes, bears, mountain lions lived back there, and stories of mythic wild boars drifted down from ranches to the north. In the spring, the hills would shrine with new grass, and the dry creeks would run for a few brief weeks. We'd hike across a ridge to ride wild horses belonging to a man who never knew that the kids rode them. In summer, the grasses burned brown, and the clumps of live oaks on the hillsides formed dark places in the distance. Later, we lived down in the valley on the caving banks of the river. At 6 and 8 years, we had hunted with slingshots in the mountains, but at 10 and 12, we owned rifles, .22s, and we stalked a dry river brush for quail and cottontails and the little brush rabbits that, like the pack rats, were everywhere. Now and then, a deer would break ahead of us, crashing thickets like the bear himself. Great horned owls lived there and called in drumming voices, vague warnings of death somewhere. From the river bottom, we pinged .22 slugs off new farm equipment, gliding past on the flat cars of the Southern Pacific Railroad. Once in a while, we'd return to Mississippi, as if my father's mixed blood sought a balance never found. 7 kids, a dog or two, canvas water bags swaying from fender and radiator, we drove into what I remember as the darkness of the Natchez Trace. In our 2-room Mississippi cabin, Daddy Longlegs crawled across the tar-papered walls, and cotton fields surged close on 3 sides. Across the rutted road, through a tangle of tree, brush, and vine, fragrant of rot and death, was the Yazoo River, a thick current cutting us off from the swamps that boomed and crackled all night from the other shore. From the Yazoo, we must have learned to feel water as a presence, a constant, a secret source of both dream and nightmare, perhaps as my father's Choctaw ancestors had. I remember it as I remember night. Always we'd return to California after a few months, as much as a year, and it would be an emergence, for the Salinas was a daylight world of hot, white sand and bone-dry brush, where in the fall red and gold leaves covered the sand and frost made silver lines from earth to sky. Here, death and decay seemed unrelated things, and here, I imagined the water as a clear, cold stream through white sand beneath my feet. Only in the winter did the Salinas change. When the rains came pounding down out of the Coast Range, the river would rise from its bed to become a half-mile wide terror, sweeping away chicken coops and misplaced barns, whatever had crept too near. Tricked each year into death, steelhead trout would dash upstream from the ocean, and almost immediately the flooding river would recede to a thin stream at the heart of the dry bed. Then a few pools marked by the tracks of the coons, then only sand again, and the tails and bones of big fish. When I think of growing up in California, I think always of the river. It seemed then that all life referred to the 120 miles of sand and brush that twisted its way northward, an upside-down, backwards river that emptied into the Pacific near Monterey, a place I didn't see till I was grown. As teenagers, my brother and I bought our own rifles, a .30-30 and a .06, and we followed our father into the Coast Range after deer and wild boar. We acquired shotguns and walked the high coastal ridges for band-tail pigeon. We drove to fish the headwaters of the Nacimiento and San Antonio rivers, and from every ridgetop we saw, if not the river itself, then the long, slow course of the valley it had carved, the Salinas. Far across were the rolling Gabilan Mountains, more hawk hills than mountains, and on the valley bottom ranches made squares of green and gold with flashing windmills and tin roofs. After school and during summers, we worked on the ranches, hoeing sugar beets, building fences, bucking hay, working cattle, dehorning, castrating, branding, ear clipping, inoculating, all in what must have seemed a single horrific moment for the bawling calf.